we're going to go straight to New York right now and check in outside the courtroom where Gary Myers, the longtime pro football columnist for the New York Daily News, was covering today's version of whatever Deflategate has turned out to be, is turning into. Gary, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing this afternoon?
Doing great. So Gary, this is getting more and more confusing as it moves along. But basically, this Judge Berman in federal court is encouraging Goodell and the NFL to settle with Tom Brady. Are we any closer to a settlement? What exactly happened today?
Well, I mean, as we speak, all the Brady attorneys plus Brady and the NFL attorneys plus Roger Goodell, I think they're just about finishing up their lunch break. And they're all in Judge Berman's chambers, and he was pretty emphatic that this thing should be settled between the two parties. And I'm not sure that's going to happen today. Both sides are pretty entrenched in their positions, but I think the point he's going to hammer home to them is, you guys it might be in your best interest to settle this on your own, because if you leave it up to me, neither side's going to be happy. I thought his questioning today, and he prefaced his questioning of the attorneys by saying, don't read anything into my tone or the manner of my questioning. In some cases, I might be playing devil's advocate, but he was much harder on the NFL attorney today than he was on Brady's attorney, Jeff Kessler. He was really questioning Daniel Nash, the NFL attorney, about how independent was Ted Wells' investigation. What concrete evidence do you really have Tom Brady was aware or had anything to do with the deflation of footballs? And then when it became Kessler's turn to answer to the judge, it mainly centered on, why Tom didn't turn over his cell phones. Something that Kessler, who was not involved in the case at that period of time, admitted that if Tom had to do it over again, he would have cooperated by turning over his phone.
Gary Myers is our guest, and he is one of the great football writers for a long, long time. College football, professional football. Gary, it's Woody. In reading all of the tweets that came out of this morning, I think he did play devil's advocate, but I thought even more so that Judge Berman was sort of acting like every man's representative, like he was asking the questions of both sides that people out in the street would like to have asked. Why are you not selling this? Why didn't you turn over the phones? Why don't you don't have any evidence, NFL? I mean, did you get that impression from him that even though he was trying to be judge-like, he was sounding like the common man saying, here are the answers we want to the questions we've got?
Woody, I think that's a great point. He did ask a lot of questions there that I think, the average fan has been wanting to ask, and through the media we haven't had an opportunity to ask. It was very clear to me that he educated himself. I don't know what kind of sports fan he is, but it was clear that he really educated himself on this subject, by reading the 243-page Wells report, which was not easy to do, I might add, as well as all the briefs filed by the attorneys, because his questions were right on point. I think the only thing that he showed a lack of knowledge of is he called the Colts Patriots game the AFL championship, which, Woody, you and I appreciate going back to the AFL days. But other than that, I think he showed really excellent knowledge of this case and what's been going on. And I couldn't help but think, I was only sitting about 5 feet behind Brady, and he was very stoic, which is, very contrary to the way he is on the field, as we've all seen him. And he really didn't show any emotion or, any. I was leaning forward to try to see any facial reactions, and I really couldn't see any. And all I was thinking was Tom must have been thinking, all I was thinking is that Tom must have been thinking, what the heck am I doing in Lower Manhattan in the middle of August when we open the preseason tomorrow night against the Packers in Foxborough, and I'm sitting in some judge's courtroom talking about footballs that I had no idea how they got deflated.
Well, he could end this if he wants.
Well, but here's the point, Gary, which I think you'd agree with, that he's not going to back down. He's not going to admit at this point that he was involved in a, quote, conspiracy, which the judge brought up today. He said, how could there be a conspiracy when there was not ever a meeting of all the parties involved? But
right.
then the NFL, trying to save face, trying to uphold what they consider to be, and particularly the commissioner, that they're allowed to do this under the collective bargaining agreement. I think it's going to be right back in Berman's hands. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, both sides seems well entrenched.
Yeah, he's going to have the wisdom of Solomon and the patience of Job, and he's going to have to cut the baby in half, it seems to me.
Well, I think that's right, and I think he'd prefer that the NFL and Brady's team, do it on their own. He did mention that this could then be appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and it could take up to 2 years, and which would just be wonderful for this to go on for another 2 years. I mean, it's bad enough it's going on for 6 months. I think that I think the issue here is, how does everybody save face? How does Goodell cut a deal here that doesn't look like he's giving everything up? And how does Brady cut a deal where he takes some punishment but does not admit to any wrongdoing? And I think that the most logical thing is either, a hefty fine, or they compromise at a one-game suspension, which I know that, Brady will go down kicking and screaming on that. But maybe that's where Robert Kraft steps in and says, Tom, as long as, the NFL and the judge are going to exonerate you, lack of evidence of any wrongdoing, just take this punishment, for not cooperating, and let's just get on with the business of trying to defend, the Super Bowl title. And eventually, I think that's what could happen. I wasn't surprised at all that Goodell did not, cut down Tom's suspension when he appealed it, because what would be the point of doing that when Brady's team had already said that if there's any suspension, that they were going to go to court? So there was no purpose in Roger cutting it at that point. Now he's left himself plenty of wiggle room. Starting at 4 games, he can go 3, 2, 1, or 0, and a nice size fine or something. There's plenty of negotiating room for the NFL right here, and I do think eventually, whether it's later today, which would seem unlikely, or when they get back together again next Wednesday, I think that a deal will be cut to end what I've called facetiously this national nightmare.
When you say that, that's exactly what I thought about. Is this long national, one of the darkest periods in American history, will it ever come to an end?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's just, it's put our nation on hold for 6 months as we wait to find out, truth, justice, and the American way, what did happen to those footballs on January 18th.
Gary, appreciate your time. We know it's been a busy day. I want to mention that you've got a new book coming out, and it's about a guy who plays here as well as Tom Brady. It's about Brady versus Manning, the longtime rivalry. When's the book come out?
It comes out September 22nd. Thanks again for mentioning that. I really had a lot of fun, writing this book. It took a little over 2 years. I had, time with both Brady and Manning, and lots of people around them to tell the story of, their incredible rivalry and a really good friendship that a lot of people know about. And I apologize for any noise you might be hearing in the background. I'm standing out here in the middle of the street with fire engines and people talking to themselves on the street. It's just another typical day in New York.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounded like the entire 3.5 years I spent in New York. Hey. Typical day. Is there one thing that came out of your research that you'd go, boy, that amazed me?
Well, not only are they, incredibly competitive and good friends, incredibly competitive when they play against each other, and good friends in the off season. They get together frequently. But without giving too much away, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories from the book. The Patriots in 2007 were 15-0 going into the final game of the year at Giant Stadium against the Giants. Brady had 48 touchdown passes. At that point, Peyton held the NFL record with 49. At some point during the week, Peyton calls up Eli and says, "Can you please relay this message to your defense? I hope I don't give up any touchdowns in this game against the Patriots, but if they do, can they please make sure they're just on the ground, because I sure would like to keep this record." So Eli says to Peyton, "Are you serious?" I mean, Eli thought Peyton was kidding around. And Eli ended the conversation fully believing that Peyton was serious. So Eli goes to Antonio Pierce, the Giants middle linebacker who was the leader of the defense, and he said, listen, I just talked to Peyton, and he asked if you guys can keep Brady from throwing a touchdown pass this weekend because he'd like to keep the record. And Pierce is telling me the story, and Eli is also like Peyton in a way that you can never really tell if he's just joking around or if he's serious. And Eli says, no, Peyton was serious and I'm serious. So he tells Eli, well, give this message to Peyton. If we keep Brady out of the end zone, throwing a touchdown pass, dinner at Del Frisco's, which I'm sure you know is one of the better steakhouses in Manhattan. Dinner for the entire defense is on Peyton at Del Frisco's, which would have been a hefty check, but Brady threw a touchdown pass in the second quarter, and then he broke the record in the fourth quarter with like a 70-yard bomb to Randy Moss. But Peyton cared enough about that record and cared enough about not having Brady break it that he actually called his brother to ask him to get a favor from the Giants defense, which is pretty amazing.
Gary, we want to talk to you a lot more about the book right around the release date, if that's okay. Can we call you in about a month?
I would love that, guys. That would be terrific.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for your time today, Gary.
Good stuff.
I'll tell Tom you guys say hello when he comes out of the courtroom later, okay?
You got it. That's Gary Myers, pro football columnist for the New York Daily News. And that first segment brought to you by the Harmony Foundation. It's Colorado's premier treatment program for drug and alcohol addiction. It's right outside of Estes Park. Really nice, big mountain campus. They're insurance friendly, so visit harmonyfoundationinc.com for more information.